Hey, everybody, welcome back to Chipstock Investor. Today, we're going to be talking about the company CyberArk, and we're going to talk a little bit about robotics.
These things are definitely related. CyberArk, of course, a cybersecurity company. We covered it in early June, late May. We get a lot of questions about covering the robotics industry, and I think we can all agree we are a long ways off from this world pictured here from Nvidia. Thank goodness. Hopefully, we can all agree on that. But actually, Casey, the world is actually already full of robotics, unbeknownst to most people. And there is most definitely a way to invest in it. One of those is through cybersecurity. The robots need security services, right?
Absolutely. Hopefully, these robots aren't anything creepy like this, but rather, all robots just provide another attack vector for hackers to take data that could compromise businesses, compromise personal accounts, anything like that. And so, we're not talking about creepy robots. We're talking about the robots that function in our day to day activity
Yeah. And creepy humans
and creepy
that may
humans.
want to use the robots to infiltrate an organization. We'll come back to the robots topic in just a moment and give you a rough idea of how many robotic processes are actually already in existence. It may surprise you, but let's talk about cybersecurity first.
Before we jump in, let's have a word from today's video sponsor, Moomoo. With all the ups and downs in the stock market and the Fed recently slashing interest rates and continuing to do that in the future, it's a good time to think about your investments. And that's where Moomoo comes in. It's an easy to use trading app with a low fee and gives you all the tools that you need to make smart moves.
And speaking of hot investments, now that the Fed has indicated that some more interest rates might be coming, tech stocks might be ready to heat back up. But where would you even begin to start? Moomoo has some powerful tools that can help you figure that out. They have lists of different stocks, different businesses by theme, for example, cybersecurity and robotics, a separate theme with lists of companies for each, and also lists of ETFs that help you get broad exposure to different industries and different thematic investing styles, all in one nice, nifty, easy to manage package.
If you're new to Moomoo, use our link to sign up and make a deposit, and you'll get up to 15 free stocks plus an 8.1% limited time APY on idle cash for 3 months and a transfer in bonus of $300 in Moomoo cash rewards. It's a sweet deal. Don't miss it. Now back to our discussion on the cybersecurity industry.
All right, so here is our cybersecurity and IT industry flow. It's been refreshed. Thanks, Stassi. Basically, this is a visual that shows the flow of information, of digital data through the very massive global IT infrastructure and different places that need protection along the way, along that journey for a bit of data. We're focusing today on the right-hand side of this chart, which skews heavily towards software services. On the left side is the more traditional IT infrastructure, so actual physical devices like firewalls that protect things like an office or a data center. We're talking about a software service that protects endpoints and users, including machines and robots.
The reason that we focus so much on the cybersecurity industry is because it's a big segment in the world economy. $215 billion in annual spend in 2024 just on cybersecurity. We're going to focus on that bottom right side of this chart in identity and access management, which currently makes up around $20 billion in global annual spend.
Not the biggest segment of cybersecurity, so not like your CrowdStrike that boasts having something like 100 billion plus per year opportunity, which is kind of a bogus number, but that's maybe a topic for a different video, I guess, on why total addressable market figures are not super reliable. But identity and access management, who's who in this segment of cybersecurity? You've probably heard of Okta before. This used to be cybersecurity darling, especially during the pandemic. Not so much anymore. Back in May, we did some write-ups and did a video calling out some of the issues at Okta. The stock has underperformed. We'll show you that here in just a moment. CyberArk also in the mix here, Microsoft. And then you do have quite a bit of activity going on in the merger and acquisition space. Thoma Bravo has been very active in the last few years. They've purchased all three of those companies, SailPoint, Ping Identity, and ForgeRock. And we're going to come back to Thoma Bravo here in a moment when we start talking about CyberArk.
When we're talking about CyberArk, we're going to be focusing on these two segments. Within identity access management, there is a subset called privileged access management. Let's define these two services. This is a blog post from Delinea, and they explain what the difference is between these two segments. Identity access management is a system to identify and authorize users across an organization. Privileged access management is a subset of IAM that focuses on privileged accounts and systems.
So think of identity management as something for all employees and maybe suppliers, companies, other companies that work with a business, making sure that they're all secure, that their credentials, their passwords, if they're still being used, multi-factor authentication, all of that stuff is working properly. PAM, privileged access management, love the acronym, is specifically for, let's say, like the C-suite of a business, making sure that the executives are the only ones getting into that data specific to them. Or maybe there's very sensitive trade secrets or patents for a business, making sure that only the people that need to work with those trade secrets are getting access to them. That way there's not some sort of like corporate espionage situation.
So in our business, I have the PAM and you have the IAM.
Facts.
So when we're talking about identity access management, are we talking about what CrowdStrike labels as their identity portion of their business?
Yeah, this is, I guess, maybe circling back to that total addressable market issue that a lot of companies like to cite and don't give enough detail for investors to make a actually informed decision on. So identity that CrowdStrike offers is more of an add-on service. It's not a core service to their endpoint security. And one hint is in this slide that they like to show in almost every single earnings presentation for a while now. You will not see Okta or CyberArk listed as a competitor in identity. How in the world is that possible? Because Okta and CyberArk are kind of two of the leaders in IAM and PAM. This is why. So this is what's actually within CrowdStrike's identity access management suite of services. It's an assessment tool. It's a way for an organization to check for any vulnerabilities in their identity management platform. And then if you've actually experienced an identity-based attack, say the CEO's password got stolen, CrowdStrike can help you track down where the attack actually took place. Was the CEO's password, or was there some sort of infiltration within the organization and the password was stolen somehow? So what CrowdStrike offers is not as complete a service as Okta and CyberArk. And so while their TAM might be that $20 billion in total identity access management sub-industry of cybersecurity, what CrowdStrike can actually service is much smaller. Sorry, we'll rewind here. We'll get out of the weeds. Back to CyberArk. What is it exactly that CyberArk offers then within this identity access management?
Instead of offering this service as an add-on, CyberArk's identity security intelligence is the core functionality of their cybersecurity services. They have a zero trust platform, which is another way of saying that they manage the enforcement of passwords or other credentials for employees to log into the data that they need. They manage multi-factor authentication, as well as protecting company secrets. They're monitoring individual web sessions, watching what employees are doing, making sure that you're just doing your job. Before we jump into our discussion of robotics and endpoint security, let's focus in on how these stocks have performed, both Okta and CyberArk.
So the first chart, this goes back to the furthest point in time where both Okta and CyberArk were publicly traded. Okta had its IPO in 2017, so we're starting from that point forward. CyberArk actually went public first a few years prior to that, but you can see Okta has, had its 15 minutes of fame there in 2020, 21, 22. Not such a hot stock anymore. Lots of issues with this company. Growth is slowing. Profit margins are mediocre. CyberArk has kind of been this slow, if we can say that. Well, yeah, what's the CAGR on this thing?
Yeah, 25%.
Slow and steady since 2017 at a 25% CAGR. And it's gotten worse here in 2024. You can see Okta and CyberArk early in the year, kind of matching each other performance-wise, but more issues kind of cropped up as Okta's growth trajectory has definitely slowed down. We called this out in May, and the video we did in early June said CyberArk was the better investment, and that call's panned out pretty well. Okay, let's get back to the robots part of this, because this is actually the point where we said, hey, CyberArk is a cybersecurity company that you definitely want to keep on your radar.
As Nick mentioned, Thoma Bravo has been making some strategic acquisitions over the past several years. And a few years ago, they invested in Venafi. And Venafi specializes in machine security,
AKA robotic process security.
Fast forward to May of this year, 2024, and CyberArk announced that they were going to be acquiring Venafi for around $1.7 billion.
Yeah, 1.7 now, because actually CyberArk is going to be paying for this deal with the issuance of new stock. CyberArk stock has gone up since May. That new stock is actually getting paid to Thoma Bravo, who is apparently going to remain a sizable investor in CyberArk now that Venafi is part of CyberArk. So that deal just closed on October 1st. So CyberArk identity access management for humans, for people, paired with Venafi's robotics and machine identity access management.
Take a look at that highlighted portion of this slide regarding the announcement of Venafi going to CyberArk. It states that machine identities are burgeoning at an unprecedented rate, outnumbering human identities by as much as 45 to 1. Now, that may seem like an absolutely outlandish number, but in many organizations, robots are doing most of the automated tasks.
Yeah, it does sound outlandish, but it's actually true. It depends on how big the company is that you work for, what it is exactly that company does. But most robotic processes that exist right now, the robot doesn't have a physical body, like some metallic chassis or a humanoid form walking around amongst us doing tasks. The robot is actually bodiless. It inhabits the cloud or a data center, and it just takes care of these processes.
I feel like you made that sound way more creepy than it should be, than a humanoid robot. You described the entity.
It's kind of creepy, I guess. They're doing very benign things, though. For example, back in May, we used kind of a cliche example of a manufacturing arm on like an auto assembly line. That's a robot. It's kind of doing the same repetitive task over and over again, but it's an attack vector. If a hacker is able to get into, let's say, the network that oversees that manufacturing line, maybe the robot is accessing some set of instructions on what it's supposed to do. The hacker can get into that particular part of the network and then move laterally to other parts of the network and extract more data from that, let's say, data center or on-premises system. So what about those robots that don't have a physical form, like this robotic manufacturing arm? Many of these things are floating around a data center or a cloud network, automating tasks. Maybe they're doing data entry. Maybe they're doing data collection and data processing and then sending that data to long-term storage. Maybe they're extracting data from long-term storage to be used in some other process or some other task. So all of these machines and processes, even the non-physical ones, need some sort of certificate that says they have access to the information that they're supposed to.
Interesting point about the financials of securing robots. The value of securing robots or identity access management for robotics is much cheaper than doing that for a human. And the reason why is because we are much more unpredictable. You never know when we're going to be searching for whatever on the internet. I don't know. I never ever searched for anything inappropriate on the internet before. So,
Clicking links that you shouldn't.
oh yeah, yes, opening emails that you shouldn't.
Yeah,
PDFs,
downloading attachments.
you name it. We're very unreliable and unpredictable people.
Yeah, that's why identity access management for people is high value. Securing machines, not so much. Thank goodness we have them though, right?
Absolutely. They do a lot of things that we don't want to do. Let's talk about how CyberArk is going to benefit from adding Venafi to their company.
Okay, so this is updated for halfway through 2024. We should have Q3 numbers before too long. And when they're released, Venafi is going to add roughly $150 million in annualized revenue. So CyberArk running at about, let's just call it 850 million in annualized revenue at this point. plus 150 from Venafi, we're probably looking at a company generating about 1 billion a year in annualized revenue after the third quarter. And you can see, even without Venafi added to the mix, CyberArk has actually been accelerating. It's growing faster than it was the last couple of years as we've come out of the pandemic. The addition of Venafi will probably keep that run going. So that explains why the stock price has been going up so much here since this acquisition of Venafi was announced a few months ago.
You can see that CyberArk is steadily making their way back to GAAP profitability. Even after acquiring Venafi, CyberArk will probably continue to trade for something like 80x to 100 times trailing 12 months free cash flow. You can see in orange there that CyberArk's free cash flow is at record highs, and we can expect that that will continue to increase with that acquisition of Venafi.
Yeah, that's right. CyberArk actually had said at the time they announced the purchase agreement with Thoma Bravo that Venafi has better profit margins than CyberArk does. So lower value security service in terms of revenue coming from Venafi. Securing robots, not as big a market as securing human identities. However, pretty high profit margin business, it would seem. So we'll see how this pans out now that the two companies are combined and they begin reporting their financials together. We'll see what this looks like.
So thinking back to the stock price for CyberArk, the time probably would have been in May to buy that stock and add it to our portfolio, but we decided not to at that time. We didn't have any room in our small cap basket. So are we buying now?
Cash is not an unlimited resource. You have to walk away from more deals than you say yes to. That's okay. At this point, the stock appears to be pretty hot. That probably has a lot to do with optimism regarding the acquisition of Venafi. You can see in this last final slide we put together from finchat.io. You can find a link below in the description to get 15% off your own subscription to FinChat so you can make visualizations like this if you want. You can see we're pushing a $12 billion market cap. Remember, as we get into Q3 and Q4 for CyberArk, that cash is actually going to come off the balance sheet. So the blue bar and the orange bar, cash in blue, debt in orange, are going to be basically even because there was the cash portion, the 1 billion in cash paid to Thoma Bravo for Venafi. So pretty high premium. Again, you said 80 to 100x. That's kind of our expectation for the valuation of this thing on a trailing 12-month free cash flow basis. That's running a little bit hot for our particular taste. So I think we're happy to continue monitoring this one closely. Monitoring, kind of like a creepy robot overlord, watching the stock, biding our time, and when the time is right, maybe we'll strike.
Thanks for watching this episode of Chipstock Investor. Make sure you check out our sponsor of today's video, Moomoo. Link is in the description below. Also, we have a lot more discussion over on our Discord channel. You can get access to that by means of Semiconductor Insider. Just $5 a month gets you access to live Q&As, all of our show notes, and more discussion every single day. See you all again soon at Chipstock Investor.